The night was quiet in the village. The stars twinkled above, and the fire crackled in the middle of the round hut. A group of children sat in a circle, their eyes wide with curiosity. An old man with a wrinkled face and kind eyes sat in front of them. He was the village elder, wise, gentle, and full of stories. In his hands, he held something strange. It was an old clay cooking pot. The pot was cracked and faded, with golden lines where it had once been broken and fixed. The children leaned closer. One of them asked, "Grandpa, why are you holding that pot?" The old man smiled but didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly lifted the pot and said in a low voice, "This pot once held the truth, but someone poisoned it." The fire popped. The wind whispered through the trees. The children gasped. "Poisoned it," one girl whispered. The elder nodded. "Yes. Long ago, in this very village, a family made a terrible mistake. A mistake that changed many lives." He looked around the circle, his eyes serious now. "Tonight, I will tell you the story of the cousin who poisoned the pot." The children sat still, barely breathing. And so, the tale began. Many years ago, in the heart of a peaceful village surrounded by green hills and tall palm trees, there lived a kind man named Uncle Okoro. He was a farmer, strong, honest, and respected by all. His wife, Auntie Ijeoma, was gentle and full of laughter. But there was one thing she was known for most of all: her cooking. Every time her pot touched the fire, the whole village could smell the spices, the rich flavors, the love she poured into every meal. She could turn simple yams into something magical. Uncle Okoro and Auntie Ijeoma had 2 children, a clever girl named Muna, and her younger brother, Kelechi. Kelechi was quick with words, always asking questions, and always trying to prove himself. One rainy season, something sad happened. Uncle Okoro's younger brother and his wife, both kind people, died suddenly from an illness. They left behind their only child, a boy named Obinna. Obinna was brought to live with Uncle Okoro's family. He was quiet and shy at first, but he worked hard. He swept the compound, helped in the farm, and always listened to his elders. Even the village chief once said, "That boy Obinna, he carries wisdom beyond his years." People liked Obinna, maybe a little too much, and Kelechi noticed. At first, Kelechi tried to smile when Obinna was praised. But inside, something dark began to grow, a feeling he didn't understand. He didn't like how the elders clapped for Obinna, or how his own father nodded proudly at the boy. But nothing showed that feeling more than at the time of the harvest feast. Every year, the village came together to celebrate the end of farming season. There was music, dancing, laughter, and of course, food. And at the center of it all was Auntie Ijeoma's clay cooking pot, full of rich, spicy stew that everyone waited all year to taste. That year, Obinna was asked to help cook beside her. It was a great honor. The fire was lit, the pot was washed, and the meat was already being prepared. Obinna smiled that day. Kelechi did not. And that's when the seeds of jealousy took root. Seeds that would one day poison more than just a pot. As the weeks passed, the village grew busier with harvest. Children played in the fields, mothers dried corn under the sun, and fathers returned home with muddy boots and tired smiles. But inside Uncle Okoro's compound, something quiet and dangerous was growing. Not in the farm, not in the trees, but in Kelechi's heart. He didn't understand it at first. It started small, just a tight feeling in his chest when Obinna was praised. Then it turned into silence. Then anger. At school, the teacher would say, "Class, who can read today's passage?" Obinna would raise his hand, read clearly, and everyone would clap. At home, their father would say, "Look at how Obinna washes the tools. With care. Like a real man." Even when Obinna wasn't trying, the praise seemed to follow him like a shadow. Kalechi began to wonder, "What about me? Don't I work hard too? Don't I live here too?" He started staying quiet during family dinners. He would walk behind everyone during chores, dragging his feet. Then, one day, something happened that changed everything. Kalechi was walking past the village square when he heard voices coming from behind a tree. It was the elders, 5 old men sitting under the big Irako tree, sipping palm wine and talking. He crept closer, hidden behind the trunk. One of them said, "That Obinna boy, he has the spirit of a future leader." Another added, "Smart, respectful, and humble. The kind of boy we need for tomorrow." Kalechi's stomach twisted. His fists clenched. The words rang in his ears all the way home. A future leader. The boy we need. He wasn't angry at Obinna for being kind. He was angry that no one seemed to see him anymore. And in that moment, a shadow of jealousy fully bloomed in Kalechi's heart. A shadow that would soon lead him down a path he could never walk back from. The next harvest feast was just around the corner. The compound was full of laughter and music. Chickens clucked. Smoke rose from cooking fires. People prepared for a celebration that would bring the whole village together. Obinna, once again, was asked to help with the cooking. Auntie Ijeoma trusted him. The elders praised him. Even visitors from nearby villages smiled and nodded when they saw him. And Kalechi, he smiled too, but not with joy. Something inside him had grown bitter, like an unripe fruit. That shadow in his heart whispered to him at night. It said, "No one sees you now, but they will after tomorrow." That evening, just before the feast, Kalechi slipped out of the compound quietly. He walked into the edge of the forest, carrying a small woven bag. He had been planning for weeks. Deep in the bush, he had found bitter roots, not deadly, but strong enough to spoil any food. The kind of root that leaves a burning taste in your throat and twists your belly in pain. He dug some up, crushed them between 2 stones, and wrapped the powder in leaves. Back at home, Obinna had stirred the soup for the last time and covered the pot for the night. It was full of beef, vegetables, and Auntie Ijeoma's secret blend of spices. Obinna washed his hands and went to bed, not knowing what was coming. Kalechi waited until the house was quiet. The moon lit the compound with a soft glow. He crept to the large clay pot, uncovered it, and quickly poured in the bitter powder. It sank into the soup like a secret. Then he covered the pot again and slipped back into bed. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just waited. The next morning, the drums beat loud and proud. Women carried bowls of rice, children danced, and the men shared jokes as they set the benches under the trees. Obinna stood proudly by the pot, serving the soup with a big wooden spoon. His face glowed with pride as the villagers filled their bowls. Kalechi watched from a distance. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, one person coughed. Another winced. Someone dropped their spoon. A baby started to cry. A man clutched his stomach. Then came the shouting, the groaning. People began running to the bushes, holding their bellies, faces twisted in pain. Something is wrong with the soup. It tastes strange. My throat burns. The drums stopped. The dancing ended. The celebration turned into chaos. And in the middle of it all, Obinna stood frozen, holding the same spoon. Everyone turned to look at him. The feast was ruined. The once happy voices turned into groans and cries. Children held their stomachs. Men knelt on the ground. Women helped each other walk home. All around the pot, the stew remained untouched. The elders gathered quickly under the big tree. Their faces were dark with worry and shame. One of them asked, "Who prepared this pot?" Another answered, "Obinna. We saw him stirring it just this morning." Eyes turned to the boy. He stood beside the pot, confused and scared. "But I did everything Auntie Ijeoma told me," Obinna said quietly. "I stirred it like she showed me. I didn't add anything." The chief stepped forward. His voice was heavy. "Yet the pot you watched over has brought sickness to our people." Obinna looked around for help. His eyes searched for Uncle Okoro, for Muna, for Kelechi. Kelechi stood in the back, staring at the ground. He said nothing. He did nothing. Auntie Ijeoma looked at Obinna. Her eyes were wide with worry. Deep inside, something didn't feel right, but she stayed silent too. The elders spoke again. "This village trusts its food," said one. "And food is life," said another. "To harm it, even by mistake, brings danger to us all," said the third. Then the chief gave the final word. "Obinna, you are to leave the village. At once. You may return only when the truth reveals itself." Obinna's heart felt heavy. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He only nodded slowly, eyes lowered, his hands by his sides. He went back to the house, packed his small bundle, and stepped out into the dusty road. As he walked away, chickens clucked in the distance. The wind blew gently through the trees. And no one said a word. No one, except Auntie Ijeoma, who stood in the doorway, whispering softly under her breath, "That boy is innocent." But her voice was too quiet. And the truth, like smoke, drifted away with Obinna into the hills. Time passed. The wind blew over many seasons. Rains came and went. Children in the village grew taller. New huts were built. Old ones crumbled. And Obinna was far away. He had walked for many days before he found a small village near the river. There, a kind healer took him in, fed him, and taught him the ways of roots, leaves, and healing. Obinna learned quickly. He studied the plants. He listened to the sick. He mixed herbs with care, just like he used to stir the pot. Years later, Obinna became known as the wise herbalist. People came from other towns to see him. He was gentle, humble, and always ready to help, never once speaking badly about the village that had sent him away. Meanwhile, back home, things were not the same. Kelechi had grown into a young man. His shoulders were broad. His face looked strong. But inside, he was full of worry. The secret he had kept all these years never left him. Every time someone mentioned Obinna's name, he would look away. Every time someone fell sick, he felt his heart race. Even in laughter, guilt whispered in his ears. One day, they'll find out. He tried to hide behind smiles. He even started learning herbs himself, hoping to be useful. But the village never looked at him the way they had looked at Obinna. Then one morning, something happened that shook the family. Auntie Ijeoma fell ill. She couldn't walk far. She couldn't eat well. Her eyes looked tired. Kelechi tried everything he had learned. He boiled leaves. He mixed powders. He whispered prayers. But nothing worked. His mother only grew weaker. And in the quiet of the night, Kelechi sat outside, staring at the stars, the guilt pressing heavy on his chest. His mother was slipping away, and no one in the village could save her. But far away, across the hills, there was one person, one boy turned man, who just might. As Auntie Igioma's sickness grew worse, neighbors began to talk in hushed voices. They watched Kalechi carry herbs that didn't work. They saw the worry in his eyes and the way he avoided their questions. And then, one old woman at the stream said it first. She didn't shout. She didn't point fingers. She simply whispered as she filled her calabash. Maybe the wrong son was cast out. The words floated through the village like smoke. Quiet but heavy. Another voice repeated it in the market. Then another by the well. Obinna was always kind. He never caused trouble. That boy would have known how to help her. The whisper became a wind. And though no one said it to Kalechi's face, he felt it in their eyes, in every silent look, in every gentle nod, in every pause before someone spoke. The village was remembering, and slowly the truth was rising. One quiet morning, a young man arrived at Obinna's hut in the faraway village. He brought news wrapped in worry. "A woman back home is dying," he said. "The healer has tried everything. Nothing works. They say you might be the only one who can save her." Obinna looked up. His hands were dusty from grinding herbs. "Who is she?" he asked gently. The young man answered, "Her name is Igioma." Obinna's hands stopped moving. His heart remembered. The clay pot, the shame, the silence. That name still mattered. After a quiet moment, Obinna nodded. "I will go." When he arrived at the village, the sun was setting behind the trees. People peeked from their windows. Children whispered. Some villagers turned away in guilt. Others stared in disbelief. Obinna walked with calm steps to the very compound he once called home. There she lay, Auntie Igioma, on a mat, her breath shallow, her skin pale. Her eyes opened slowly when she saw him. Tears welled up. She reached for his hand. "My son," she whispered. Obinna gently held her fingers and smiled. "I'm here now, without anger, without pride, just love." He opened his bag and began to work. Roots were crushed. Leaves were brewed. A warm scent filled the air. Kalechi stood nearby, quiet as a rock. He couldn't meet Obinna's eyes. His chest was heavy with guilt. His hands trembled. Obinna didn't look at him. Not with hate. Not with anger. Only with peace. By sunrise, Auntie Igioma sat up slowly. Her eyes were brighter. Her cough was gone. Her strength was returning. The women gasped. The children cheered. Even the elders came to watch. One of them said softly, "The boy we cast out is the one who saved us." Another whispered, "We were wrong." And so, just like that, the village remembered the truth. Not with shouting, not with punishment, but with silent shame and quiet respect. Obinna had come back not with revenge, but with healing. And that changed everything. The sun was high in the sky. The village had gathered again, not for a feast, but for something just as important. They sat under the big Irako tree, where truth had always been spoken and decisions made. Obinna stood quietly at the side, his head low, his hands folded. He had saved a life. But there was still a wound, one no medicine could heal. Kalechi walked slowly to the center. His feet felt heavy. His heart beat like a drum inside his chest. The elders looked at him, waiting. He took a deep breath. Then, in a shaky voice, he spoke. "I have something to say. Something I should have said years ago. The crowd went still. Even the wind seemed to stop. Kalechi's voice broke as he said, "It was me. I poisoned the pot. Not Obinna. I did it because I was jealous. I didn't want to lose to him. I wanted the praise, the attention. So I put bitter root in the soup and let him take the blame." A gasp moved through the crowd like a wave. Auntie Ijeoma let out a soft cry and covered her face with her wrapper. Uncle Okoro bowed his head, shame heavy on his shoulders. No one spoke. No one moved. And then Obinna stepped forward. He looked at Kalechi, not with anger, but with calm eyes. The same calmness he had carried since the day he left. He spoke softly. "You hurt me. You shamed me. But I forgive you." Kalechi fell to his knees. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I've been sorry every day since." Obinna knelt beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "We were boys," he said gently. "But now we must be men, men who heal, not harm." The elders nodded. Some wiped their eyes. That day, a truth long buried was finally set free. Not through punishment, but through honesty and forgiveness. Months passed. The rains came and went. The farms were full again. Yams grew fat in the soil. The village prepared for another harvest feast. But this one was different. This time, the people did not just celebrate food or farming. They celebrated truth. They celebrated healing. They celebrated the return of a son who was once cast away. Obinna stood near the cooking fire, dressed in a clean white wrapper, smiling, not just with his lips, but with his heart. All around him, the village buzzed with joy. Children laughed. Drums beat softly. The smell of stew filled the air. And at the center of the fire sat the same clay pot, the one from long ago, the one that had held both poison and pain. Now it was carefully repaired, its cracks filled with gold, not hidden, but shone proudly. Because now the pot didn't just hold soup, it held a story. As the people ate and danced, the village elder's voice returned, calm and strong. Sometimes it takes a cracked pot to teach us the cost of envy and the power of mercy. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.